Chapter 1 Approaching the Buddha Dharma. There are many ways of explaining Buddhism. Sometimes it is said it is not religion. It is a philosophy or a way of living. Whatever label it has is less important than how it helps us. Buddhism is a way of living and self-training which develops and refines our disposition, our attitude, our behavior, and cultivates our mind on a path that provides deep personal happiness and well-being. Buddhism enables us to turn our lives into an unfolding source of inner understanding or insights of ourselves, others, and the world we experience. The teachings of Buddhism are based upon the way nature works, the way our mind works naturally. These teachings arise from the Buddha's perfectly clear observation and insight into the mind and into the processes of life. The Buddha simply saw things perfectly clear. That was a quality of his attachment as a Buddha. This is what is generally referred to as enlightenment. His incomparable Buddha mind was sublime wisdom itself, and the origin of what became the religion Buddhism. There were 56 religions in the Buddha's time. Why did he start another one? The Buddha saw what no one else saw at his time. What none of the religions at the time or since have offered humanity. He saw the truth about the actual nature of the mind and body, the nature of different types of consciousness we can experience. And in recognizing this nature of mind, he also discovered a particular awareness, unseen by everyone in the noise of our mental phenomena. A unique, already liberated state which has no mental pain whatever. It is described as a perfect peace and is named Nirvana in Sanskrit, or Nibbana in the Pali language used in the Buddha's time. The Buddha, having discovered the existence of an unconditional state that he called Nibbana, spent the next 45 years of his life teaching countless others the path or practice through which Nibbana could be known, each for himself or herself. It is a natural existence state that is the goal of Buddhist practice. So many persons in our modern cultures who are not socially isolated are well educated and have affluent lifestyles frequently experience many forms of unhappiness. These include worry, stress, anxiety, insecurity, sadness, anger, frustration, and depression. Australia, for example, has one of the world's highest rates of suicide, particularly among our youth. Yet our biggest cities are regarded as being the most top 10 cities in the world to reside in. Our material standards of living are among the world's best, yet our mental culture appears by this criterion to be nothing special. Buddhism provides the mental technology, the mind tools and methods we need to see in our own mind with increasing clarity and understanding. This is the Buddhist approach to developing and maintaining a healthy mind and good life. Whilst we read about Buddhism, it is not enough for us to have an intellectual understanding or even respectful appreciation of what the Buddha found out. Just as looking at the food on the table cannot cure us of hunger, merely appreciating Buddhist teachings will not make us happy. As Buddhism is sometimes referred to as a to-do-it-yourself religion because we need to apply the Buddha's advice in our own life to experience any significant benefit. So where do we start? As we read or hear about Buddhism, we need an active intention to find something worthy while to apply in our life, and then do it. We want to apply the instructions in the same way as if we have visited the doctor, and then we go straight to the chemist so we can take the medicine quickly. What usually happens is we forget 90% of the time or more of what we read within a few days. If we forget 90% in a few days, why bother? Applying 10% of what was heard or read in a book will not work. It is an approach which is likely to result in only a very weak improvement. Then we may tell others, "Ooh, I've tried that, but it doesn't work." Active listening and reading is the opposite of passive listening and reading. Passive can be considered as reading to know or find out about Buddhism through collecting information about Buddhism without implementing any actions, steps, that is, without changing anything we do. That's how we often learn things in our past. However, we won't understand much about ourselves from listening to the teachings of Buddha that way. What we must hear must be translated into action. At the time we discover something new, our mind has the best understanding of why we need to change our habit and adopt the new behavior. The next day, our sense of urgency to change becomes weaker, the day after less again. We are creatures of habit. A habit energy is often difficult to overcome. Our best opportunity is to make a change. The best conditions to make a change is generally as soon as we understood clearly we need to change. If we keep doing what we've always done, we'll get the same results. The happiness you are looking for. The Dalai Lama has said many times that what all beginners want is fundamentally is to be well and happy. We do a survey of the students at a course we conducted on Buddhism to find out what they hope to get out of the course. Most of the answers were to do everything developing inner peace and happiness. Buddhism says you can certainly achieve long-lasting happiness. Ajahn Brahm, a famous Buddhist monk who lives in Perth, Western Australia, for example, says he has found deeper and deeper levels of happiness through practicing Buddhism. In his words, he says he experiences happiness stacked on happiness stacked on happiness. From the Buddhist perspective, the key to achieving happiness is to understand the root causes of happiness. According to Buddhism, it is not a mystery at all. The process of how and why our minds experiences happiness and suffering is what the Buddha found out. In Buddhism, it is taught that there are two levels of reality. The first level is named conventionally reality. This is the part everyone else already has understanding about.
We operate successfully in the world by understanding conventional reality and building the skills and attitudes from childhood to relate to our life that way. However, Buddhist teachings sometimes refer to conventional reality as a deceptive reality because it leads us to believe that it is the only reality that exists. Buddhism says that there is another level of reality called absolute or ultimate reality. This is the fundamental reality, which is not so much to do with what happens to us to be happening from moment to moment, but more to do with why things happen and how they happen. Let us explain this by using the example of the Buddha when he was young. Before he set out on his path to enlightenment, his name was Siddhartha. You may know that he was a prince who lived a wonderful life in a royal palace in northern India. Whilst his living conditions were fabulous, there was still discontent in his mind. He wondered about his life and the life of others. He was deeply affected by the things most people tend to accept as being just part of life, such things as sickness and old age, sadness and sorrow, and finally death. He saw these things as immense burdens and difficulties which we all must meet. His wife, father, children, in fact everyone he knew would have to face old age and death. And yet at that same time, everybody he knew lived their lives seemingly unconcerned about these things. They were unconcerned because they believed there was nothing that could be done about it. Siddhartha, however, could not be unconcerned. He wanted to find out why the world was like that. He wanted to know what was the truth about life, what was really going on, what caused these difficult sufferings to happen in unequal measures to everybody. Was there any way that could be found which would stop suffering? This is where we get back to the difference between conventional and ultimate reality. Siddhartha was asking questions which could not be answered by understanding conventional truth. He had reached the ceiling, the limit of what conventional truth could say about the world. Even though some siddhas or yogis did perceive deeper levels of understanding than conventional reality, they could still not provide the answers to Siddhartha's questions. You can read about the journey Siddhartha went on for 6 years as a wandering ascetic, in search of what he had vowed to find out about life and, in particular, to know the answers to his profound questions. He wanted to understand why there is suffering in life. The culmination of the extraordinary quest finally came when his mind penetrated to the level of reality which creates our conventional reality. It is referred to as being an ultimate reality, meaning there is nothing further, nothing higher, nothing more than this. Not only did Buddha access the existence of an ultimate reality, he chose to spend the rest of his 45 years of life teaching others the method by which they could experience what he had discovered for themselves. From his perfect knowledge of both types of reality, conventional and ultimate reality, the Buddha described the engine that powers every individual's experiences of suffering and happiness. Buddha saw that just as there are laws of nature which operate in the physical world, the many laws we recognize through science, there are also universal laws of nature which operate in the mental world. They are the natural laws of the mind. We are so used to understanding that the physical world operates on natural laws, yet what about the mental world? Mind is also part of nature. The Buddha saw that together physical laws and the mind laws govern the processes of life and living. From this deep wisdom, the Buddha saw how individual suffering arises. So now we come back to our own situation. The problem that arises for us and the reason we have not already developed sustained happiness in our lives is that we only have knowledge of the conventional type of reality. Our knowledge is missing fundamental parts of the process through which our happiness and unhappiness come to us. In our times, we have learned through science, the horizons of what we could see are ever expanding. Through quantum physics, we can see into the infinitesimally small dimension of reality's building blocks. Through astronomical research, we can see back through millions of light years in time. Yet all these astounding visions are in the world as outside of ourselves. Our inside world really, we don't see much at all. We see further and further outwardly, not far at all inwardly. Why do you think that is? Our mind is all we have got to deal with the events and processes in our life. Buddhism says it is possible to understand our own mind, and it is the most important thing we need to understand and develop. The quality of our moment-by-moment experience of life is most determined by the quality of our own mind. There are approximately 40 volumes of Buddhist texts explaining what the Buddha found out, and the methods Buddha taught his students so they could develop their own minds to see ultimate reality directly for themselves. How do we get a vantage point that can help us use this knowledge to move forward in our own lives? One natural law that is used in Buddhist philosophy is the law of karma. If we understand it correctly, it is a key to learning what Buddhist practice is all about and setting out on the path to our own true well-being and happiness. This is the law of karma, or the law of cause and effect. Law of karma. The Buddha taught that the origin of reality itself is from cause and effect. The law of karma holds that every action we do intentionally, either through our body, speech, or mind, produces an effect that will be experienced by the doer or at the same time in the future. These actions we do may be 1. Morally good, kind and helpful actions to ourselves or others, which by nature produce outcomes that are beneficial and conducive to the happiness and well-being of the doer. 2. Morally neutral actions, which by nature do not contribute either positively or negatively to the well-being of the doer. Morally bad, unkind and harmful actions to ourselves or others, which by nature produce outcomes of harm, difficulty, and unhappiness for the doer of the actions. As some Christian teachings put it, as you sow, so you reap. The law of karma applies not only to our physical world, but also to our mental world, and is the origin of the unfolding experience of every living being. It is described that each action of our body, speech, and mind we do with intention plants a seed or cause in our consciousness, which will fruit at some future time into an event or experience we will have. When we actually experience the result or effect of these seeds, is similar to what happens in nature. If we plant a seed of a tree, it does not grow up instantaneously. It is in the soul, unseen by us. When the natural supporting conditions such as moisture, heat, and light are right, it germinates and then we see it. It is described in Buddhism that our karmic seeds are the causes for all the events and experiences we have in our lives. As we live each event and each experience, we use up and exhaust some of our karmic seeds. As these karmic results are being experienced according to our mind's responses, we are also making new courses. Our morally bad or unwholesome karmic seeds fruit when we experience hardship, sorrow, and difficulty. Our morally good or wholesome karmic seeds are used up when we experience such things as honor, wealth, and happiness. Accordingly, Buddhist teachings explain how we live our life each day. The type of actions, speech, and thinking we generate are the raw ingredients, the source from which our future experiences arises. All the forms and types of Buddhist practice, all the different traditions are based on this premise. Therefore, we begin with the explanation about karma. As we look at the different aspects of Buddhism, we can start to appreciate how and why Buddhism works and how it can work for you in your life if you choose to practice it.